All right, guys, today's Algebra 1 lesson is over graphing and solving inequalities. So before we get into actual problems, I want to do a quick reminder with you guys by what I mean with inequalities. That is when you're going to see greater than or less than, or equal to, greater than or less than or equal to signs. So here, if you remember, if it's going towards the right, so if it's going away from your variable, it's less than. If it's going to the left, towards your variable, it's greater than. And then if you put the lines underneath, so like this, when it's going to the right with the line underneath, that's less than or equal to. And here is greater than or equal to. This will be a great resource to write down somewhere for you to have, because I know sometimes people will get mixed up on which are which. So I would write this down, take a screenshot, take a picture, whatever. It's a good resource to have. Okay, so we're going to start by graphing different inequalities. Okay, our first example here, we have an inequality that says x is greater than 1 because it's facing towards the variable. It is greater than. When graphing inequalities, here's what I need. You need to write the number that you're using in your inequality, so 1. And then I want you to put one number above it and one number below it, and that's good enough for me. So one number above it would be 2, one below it would be 0. All right, then you want to draw a circle on your number. In this situation, since it's just greater than, that means x cannot be 1. So you want to leave it as an open circle. Okay? Then we need to figure out which way we're going to shade. We'll see how x is greater than. That means you want all the numbers bigger than 1. So you want to shade by making an arrow, shading all the way across, and then making it into an arrow. This is telling me that I'm hitting all numbers that are bigger than 1. That's what I'm looking for when I want you to graph an inequality. So then we're going to do the same thing for number 2. For number 2, a this time is less than 2 3/4. So write your fraction. So we've got 2 3/4. And pick something that's bigger, which would be, I don't know, you could do 3, and then something that's smaller, 2. So you know it's between 2 and 3. Again, you're going to have an open circle, and this time a is less than, so you want to get all the numbers smaller than 2. Or sorry, smaller than 2/3. 2 3/4. Holy cow, my bad, guys. So all the numbers smaller than 2 3/4. All right, awesome. Next one we have is y is less than or equal to -2. In this situation, because it's less than or equal to, when you write down your -2, and then we put a number above it and a number below it, your circle at -2 is going to be closed because it could be -2. It could be -2 or it could be anything less than -2. So this time, once again, we're shading to the right here, or the left, sorry. Okay, so anything smaller than -2. Number 4, we've got -1.5. -1's bigger than it, -2 smaller. This time we've got y is greater than. So you want it to be an open circle going to the right. Okay. Next example is a little different, because in this example, we have -2 is less than or equal to x. So notice this time the variable's on the right instead of the left. What I would say in this situation, guys, to make it easier on you, flip the order. So rewrite it. Put x first. X is bigger. So you guys switch that sign around like this, and then -2. So it's a lot easier to read so you can see x is bigger than -2. Okay? Because if you look at it this way, you might think you need your arrow to be less than, but it's actually bigger. So if we put our -2, -1, -3, it's greater than or equal to, so we want a shaded circle, and we want to go to the right because, again, x is bigger. You might not need to rewrite it to see that, but it might be a good idea if you get confused to rewrite it. All right, our last example is kind of a tricky, weird one, because we have the square root of 24 is less than or equal to w. And again, I'm going to rewrite it to make it a little easier. So w is greater than or equal to 24. So we're basically doing the, flipping it around, doing the opposite. So in this situation, we don't want to use a calculator, okay? There's a lot easier ways to do it. If you think of perfect squares are 4, 9, 16, 36, so forth. They're all perfect squares, 25, 49, 64. You want to find the two perfect squares that 24 is between. Well, in this situation, 24 is between 16 and 25. It's going to be a little closer to the 25 side. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 25 is 5. So when you write your square root of 24, just know that it's between 5 and 4, but it's going to be a little closer to 5 because 24 is closer to 25. So then you do your shaded circle. And again, we said w is greater than. So then you would just shade to the right. So that is graphing inequalities. Okay, so that's the first part of this video. The second part is we're going to talk about solving inequalities. So if we look here, I have 4 different examples for us to solve, and we're focusing on solving for the specific variable given. So looking at our first example, example 1, we have 2y plus 5 is less than 23. So we want to solve for y. When we're solving for y, don't let the different sign confuse you, okay? You still want to solve it like you would an equation. So you want to start by subtracting 5 from both sides. So now you have, when you do that, that's a 0. So you end up with a 2y is less than 23 minus 5 is 18. Okay, so that's the first step. So now, again, we're trying to solve for y. So the next step that you want to do is you want to divide both sides by 2. So divide by 2, divide by 2. When you do that, these 2's cancel. So you're left with y, because over here that becomes a 1. So you're left with y is less than 9. And that would be your answer. Y is less than 9. Okay, so that's our first example. Let's take a look at our next example. The next example is -2x is less than 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by -2. -2 over -2 is a 1. So we now have an x. 8 divided by -2 is -4. But here is the important bit, guys. Because we divided by a negative number, you have to flip your sign. So it's now going to be x is greater than -4 instead of less than. Anytime you multiply or divide by a negative number on both sides of your inequality, you have to flip the sign. So that's a good thing to make note of. When you divide by a negative, you have to flip the sign. All right, so the sign goes from less than to greater than. Okay, our next example, we've got -2 is greater than or equal to x over 5. This is like saying x divided by 5. So you want to multiply by 5 here, and you want to multiply by 5 on this side as well. 5 times -2. Now, I know the -2 is negative, but the 5 is not, so you don't flip the sign. You just take 5 times -2, which is -10. Okay, and then your sign stays the same. These cancel, so you're just left with x. So -10 is greater than or equal to x. If you want to flip it around, you could also say x is less than or equal to -10. So you could say this either way. Okay. Great. Last but not least, we have the following. 2 times the quantity x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 44. So what you want to do here is you want to first distribute your 2. So you get a 2x minus 10 is greater than or equal to 44. Then you want to add 10 to both sides. So we're going to add 10 plus 10 plus 10. So you get a 2x is greater than or equal to 54. And then last but not least, divide both sides by 2. This becomes an x is greater than or equal to 27. Okay, so when you're solving inequalities, guys, you're solving the same way with equations. The only thing you have to remember is this right here. When you divide or multiply by a negative, you have to flip the sign. Okay, that is all for today's lesson. For your homework with this lesson, you are actually doing a worksheet. The worksheet is in an assignment that's attached to your Canvas page, This Week at a Glance. Just click on it. It'll take you to the link for the assignment where you can get the worksheet. For that worksheet, you can either write right on the worksheet and then turn that in, or you could print it out, write on the worksheet, take a picture, turn it in, or if you can't print it out, just write it on a separate piece of paper, take a picture of that, upload it, turn it in. Those of you in school, you're just going to be giving me one in person, but for the people who are not in school, that's what you're going to be doing. All right, awesome, guys. Have a great day. Bye.